Hail all Saul, my tribe, and welcome to the Modern Barbarian podcast. Today's episode is going to be another book review. I recently, well, not so recently, more recently at the time of writing, but it took me a while to get to this episode. But I finished a book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking by Alan Carr. It's the tool that I used to quit smoking. And I have since quit smoking entirely and have had very little problem doing so. The methodology that the author uses to approach quitting smoking is different than any other method I've come across. I'm not going to try and retell the entire book to you here, but I'm going to review some of what I believe to be the critical points to success with this method. My hope is that each of my listeners that is a smoker will hear what I have to say, choose to purchase and read this book, and take this big step toward becoming stronger, faster, and harder to kill. I also believe that this methodology could work for any vice that you're trying to quit. It's all about understanding yourself and the vice, right? So the 5 points that the book teaches. This book fixes your mindset about smoking. This book breaks the glass about the enjoyment of smoking. This book shows that it is fear that keeps us smoking. This book teaches us to make smoking an enemy that we can overcome. And this book shows us that not smoking is not giving something up, but gaining something of great value to us. So let's dive in and take a look at these. I'm going to have this one be another one of the shorter episodes. Like I said, I'm still in the process of packing and moving and everything, so I've got a lot of work to do this weekend still. But you guys are important, right? I need to keep my schedule for my listeners because you guys take the time to listen to the things I have to say and think they're important, and the message that I'm trying to put out there is important. So no matter how busy I get, I still need to put something out for my people. But like I said, try the short form. So we're going to try and get to a 15-20 minute time frame with this and see if that goes over better with some of my listeners. We'll just see. But point 1, fixing the mindset, right? What are we talking about? Well, all of our smoking lives, we've been told that quitting smoking is hard, which is just an outright lie. We've also been told that, the addiction from nicotine makes us want it, that we're going to always have this craving for it and never be free of it, even if we quit, all this stuff, right? But let's look at a few things that most of us that have been smokers know. We know we've always been told that it's hard to quit smoking. We've always been told that smoking is something that we enjoy, that it's not a burden to us, right? But that's also a lie. And realistically, at a certain point in every smoker's life, they've realized that they no longer want to be a smoker. They may tell themselves that they enjoy it. They may talk about how calming it is and all this stuff. But at some point, even if it's just to themselves and they never say it out loud, they come to terms with the fact that they don't want to actually be a smoker anymore and are kind of trapped in it. So we fix the mindset, right? We understand that smoking is bad for us. Smoking is an addictive habit that we actually get nothing from, right? And when you look at it, there is nothing that you get from smoking. You're ingesting smoke and dangerous chemicals into your body for no benefit. The benefits that we perceive are false benefits, right? Because they are the relieving of withdrawal pangs. So what happens is you become addicted to the nicotine. You go for a time without it, and your body goes into withdrawal, which makes you feel uncomfortable, right? And that discomfort and tension builds up, gets blamed on other things going on in your day, and then you go have a cigarette, and the nicotine releases all that tension and relieves the withdrawal pangs. And then you feel better because you're no longer in withdrawal from nicotine. And you tell yourself, oh, see, I feel so much better because I'm smoking. Smoking is making me feel good. When all it's doing is relieving the symptoms that the nicotine itself causes. So you, by smoking, cause yourself to have these problems that only smoking can fix. You're not actually getting anything from it but relief from the problem of smoking. So the other thing that I like that really resonated with me in this book that helped me quit is to know that non-smokers still lead healthy, productive, stress reduced, not stress free, but they still live good lives, right? They don't run around thinking, oh my God, I wish I could be a smoker all the time. They don't even think about it. And since having quit smoking myself, even though my wife still smokes, I'm trying to help her, but she's just not ready yet. She has to come to that point herself. But even her smoking has not been able to get me to smoke again. Even, being around it, she still smokes in the car when I'm driving sometimes and that kind of stuff, and I just don't want it. So it's about fixing the mindset. We've been brainwashed by, the big tobacco companies to think that this is something that we want. Most of our lives, we've seen this stuff. And them telling us how dangerous it is isn't really counteracting it because human beings are bad at long term consequences. So it fixes the mindset by showing you how the brainwashing occurs and how you can break free of it. That was point one. The second thing that I got from this book, second point I'd like to make, is the myth of enjoying smoking. I already talked about it a little bit, but smoking becomes a subconscious level habit that you do and you don't even think about doing, let alone enjoy. Think about your average smoke break when you're a smoker, right? You're sitting somewhere, you're playing on your phone, you're talking to somebody, and you're barely even thinking about the cigarette itself. You've done it so many times that you're not, it's just second nature to you. You're not thinking, okay, it's time to inhale this cigarette. Now, enjoy the taste of the tobacco, which I don't think I ever really did. But, you don't sit there and think about and enjoy the process like you do when, you're eating a dessert that you bought or, something like that, or you're going through something that you actually enjoy. You sit there and you think about it and you think about the enjoyment of it. No smoker that I know ever does that. They don't sit down and be quiet and sit there and think about smoking that cigarette and be like, oh yes, this cigarette is so good, let me enjoy it, right? It's something that happens while they're doing something else. They'll be working on something and have a cigarette. Or they'll be talking to somebody or playing on their phone and have a cigarette. Nobody just sits down and smokes. But what the smoker is actually enjoying is the release of wanting a cigarette. The way the book puts it, it's the equivalent of banging your head against the wall all day just to say that it was enjoyable to stop. So think about that, like we talked about. It's the relieving of a symptom that it causes. Nicotine withdrawal is what causes you to have that empty, tense feeling. And all you're doing by smoking is relieving the symptoms of the nicotine withdrawal. But the only reason you have nicotine withdrawal is because you smoke. As soon as you quit, it starts leaving your system. And within, I think it was 3 weeks was what they claimed, but felt way faster for me. You stop you stop feeling all that shit. You don't feel like you need a cigarette all the time. And you stop thinking about it all the time. Like, this is the first time I've really thought about cigarettes, and that was to write this and talk about this book review to try and help you guys. But they've become such a non-issue in my life. And I was a pack-a-day smoker for damn near 20 years. Right? Now, on and off, I've quit before. I've tried quitting before, and it never stuck for very long. I quit when I was cage fighting. In my fight camps, I wouldn't smoke so I could get up to shape better and stuff like that. But as soon as the fight was over, I'd go back to smoking. So it's just, this one finally got my head in the right place and made me realize some things. Right? It's like beating your head against the wall just so you can say that you enjoy not beating your head against the wall. Right? Quitting beating your head against the wall is not something to look forward to. You have never beat your head against the wall in the first place. And it's like that with smoking. It's time to stop, right? If you've been waiting for the sign that now is your time, that now is the time to stop smoking, here it is. Here's your sign. Stop fucking smoking. Also, smoke tastes like shit. It just does. We all had to teach ourselves how to enjoy the taste of cigarettes. You can't see my air quotes there, but we all knew that smoking tasted bad when we started. When we hit that first cigarette, we could barely breathe. We didn't like the taste. We had to learn how to smoke, right? We had to trick ourselves and continue trying until we could get past how bad it tasted, how much it hurt our lungs. Nobody actually enjoyed their first cigarette. And we kept pushing ourselves to learn to smoke. Why? Because we'd been taught that smoking was cool, or that was something that we wanted to do, and we would enjoy it if we just got past the crap, right? What a bunch of idiots we were. Nobody actually enjoys smoking. So I want you to take an honest look at it, right? Be honest with yourself. If you can't do that, maybe you're not ready, but I think you are. I know you are. You can do this. Take an honest look with yourself. And when was the last time you actually stopped and enjoyed a cigarette, if you ever actually enjoyed a cigarette? When I stopped and looked at it, I realized that I had never actually enjoyed a cigarette in my life. Point 3. It is the fear that keeps us smoking. Every smoker I've ever met wishes that they were not a smoker. They may wish it secretly. They may never tell anybody because they don't want to admit that they're losing that battle, right? But why do they still do it? They have been brainwashed into thinking it's hard to quit, and they're scared of it. I know I was. I'm not scared of very many things, but I had failed quitting smoking so many times that I kept telling myself I'll quit when I'm ready, but right now I enjoy smoking. But what I enjoyed was not losing. What I enjoyed was not having reminded myself all the time that there was something my willpower wasn't overcoming that I wanted it to. So I quit thinking about quitting smoking because of the fear of losing again. And this book helped me pull my head out of my ass and realize that this is not something that's that hard to do. You just stop smoking, right? There's also the fear of not being able to enjoy life without smoking. That fear is caused by addiction to nicotine. This is addictive behavior, right? Every drug addict, every nicotine addict, everybody that's ever been addicted to something has had this fear of life without it. Can I still enjoy my life without whatever said addiction is, right? I like this thing. It gets into your brain and it chemically alters your brain to tell you that you enjoy this process, whatever it is, that you enjoy this thing, and that there will be no joy in your life without this thing. It's a lie, right? It's a drug addiction. Smoking is still a drug addiction. It may be a legal one, but it is a drug addiction. And addiction lies to you all the time. It tells you there can be no good in your life without this thing that you're addicted to. And it's a lie. You will live a happier, healthier life without the cigarettes. I promise you, I'm doing it right now. I have been 6 months to almost to the day clean of cigarettes. I've just put them down, right? And I've never picked up another one. But this is not like quitting cold turkey, right? Quitting cold turkey, you feel miserable the whole time. You wish you could smoke, and you're trying to tell yourself that if you just wait it out long enough that it'll go away, and it doesn't, right? You have to fix your mindset. You have to be clear of that brainwashing. You have to understand the process and know why you're going to feel and think some of the things you're going to feel and think, that it's actually just addiction, and that your brain is panicking a little bit as you go out the end of the withdrawal. But nicotine is a drug, pure and simple, and it's highly addictive. And your brain thinks that it has to have the nicotine. That's what addiction is. Something happens in your brain when it gets this stuff in it, and it's like, I must have this. Right? It's a response. It's an addictive response. But it does not. Your brain will be fine without nicotine. Your brain will be better without nicotine, and you and the rest of your body will be better without it. The addiction is a lie. You do not have to have it. There's actually nothing to fear. It is easy to quit. The withdrawal symptoms of nicotine are minor and easily overcome. Okay? It was one of the easiest things I've done once I've gotten my brain wrapped around this right, and I read this book. Quitting smoking was easy. I didn't suffer. I didn't go through a bunch of, oh God, I wish I could smoke, right? No, I knew that smoking was bad for me. I knew that I was occasionally going to get a random craving for a cigarette as I was in withdrawal of nicotine, as my body processed out of it and my brain relearned how to live without this drug in it. But it wasn't very painful. Like the withdrawal pangs of nicotine are just a bit of a empty feeling, like a bit of a longing feeling, but there was no hard effects on my body. I wasn't sore. I wasn't hurting. I didn't have any weird side effects or anything other than occasionally I would feel like I wanted a cigarette. And what it actually was my brain craving for the nicotine. And I knew that was going to happen. I was prepared for that. And after about a week, that quit. So it's not been very difficult at all to quit smoking. Point four that the book makes is that smoking is the enemy. Now I'm putting this in our language, right? They don't use these words, but I'm putting it in the barbarian language to make sense to us, right? And smoking is an addiction, and that addiction is like a little monster that lives inside of you that fights you to keep you smoking, right? That little monster is going to scream and yell for nicotine because that's what it lives off of. That little monster feeds on the nicotine. Every time you feed this little bastard, he gets stronger. And if you starve it, it gets weaker. And if you starve it long enough, it dies. Right? So you decide that that little monster in you that wants that nicotine, that needs it to survive, is now your enemy. And the only way to get it out of you is to starve that little fucker to death. He deserves it. He's stealing your two most valuable resources from you, your health and your time. Nobody likes to think about time as a resource, but it is. And it's the only resource in your entire life that you can't get any more of. You start with an abundance of it. And every day you have a little bit less of it, and you're never going to get any more of it. It's all you have. Now you can make some changes in your life to give yourself more time, I guess, would be the right, to make time last longer for you. The longer you live, the more time you get. Right? So the only way to do that is to take care of yourself. Be healthy. Be happy. Reduce your stress. And stop freaking poisoning yourself every day with cigarettes and nicotine. Starve that little bastard to death and reclaim your time. Because you only have so much of it and you're giving a bunch of it away to the little nicotine monster for no fucking reason. And this little monster's not even very strong. He's easily beaten and will starve to death completely in a couple of weeks, but will be too weak to do much to you after the first week, after about 7 days. And I can confirm that, right? After the first 7 days, it was next to nothing. The first 7 days weren't even hard, but that's when I felt the most cravings, was within the first 7 days. After that, they were pretty much gone. And, after 3 weeks, I was almost never had one. And now I maybe once every couple of months I'll think, the cigarette, right? And then I'd be like, wait, no, I don't want to fucking smoke. That's disgusting. Finally got rid of that. Why would I want to smoke, right? And it comes quickly. But it's still, there's every once in a while, and I'm only 6 months out, right? Every once in a while, my brain would be like, we used to smoke here, right? Or we would have had a cigarette when we did this. And I have to not really remind myself, but I get physically repulsed by the idea anymore. It's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to do that. But I still have that lingering shit in my brain from how many times I did it with that activity, right? I would finish whatever this activity was and I would go have a cigarette. So it kind of linked to some stuff, and I'm going through the mental process of unlinking it. But that's in my brain. That is not going to be for everybody, and that's not even addiction anymore. That's the wiring in my brain had linked those two things together, and it's having to relearn. But anyway, smoking's your enemy, right? Treat it as such. Starve that little monster to death. Point 5. You aren't giving anything up, but you're reclaiming your freedom. Right? It's the thought of giving something up that makes escaping the trap of smoking so difficult. When you believe that this is something you want, and that it does something for you, it feels like a sacrifice to quit doing it. And that's what makes it so hard to stop smoking. You feel like you're having to stop doing something pleasant. You feel like you're giving something up. But you're not sacrificing anything. You are freeing yourself. You don't need to try not to think about smoking. You don't need to avoid smokers. You need to celebrate immediately that you are a non-smoker. Day one, you call yourself a non-smoker. You don't say, I'm trying to quit smoking. You don't say, I'm trying to become a non-smoker. The day you make that choice, you immediately are a non-smoker, right? It's that easy. You reclaim your freedom. You take yourself out of that trap and stop being the slave to nicotine. You're not sacrificing anything. You're winning. Make a vow to yourself to never smoke again. Have pity on those that do smoke, for they are still enslaved. Celebrate your freedom, and that's all it takes. A shift in mindset, and you're free. As soon as you claim your non-smoker status, and you celebrate and enjoy and embrace your non-smoker status, and let yourself have pity for the smokers that are still caught in the trap, you will be free. You will make the mindset shift. You will have made the mindset shift by then. It's amazing how well this method works. I can't recommend this book highly enough for those of you who want to quit smoking. I will say one other thing about the book that I thought was really, really good too, and I think will help any of you that are on the fence about this, right? One of the things about this book, he specifically tells you you're not allowed to quit smoking until you finish reading the book. You are required to smoke the entire time you read this book. So, it's part of the method, it's part of the process. So it's not like, okay, I bought the book and now I cracked the seal and I'm supposed to just be a non-smoker, right? No. You start reading this book and you smoke the entire time. And as you learn, as you grow, as you get through and progress through this book, you'll want to smoke less and less and less. But you're still not allowed to quit until you finish the book. So it helped me with the mindset shift. I was ready to quit smoking about a week before I actually did, because I had to finish the book, right? And you have to keep smoking as part of it. He tells you if you don't do this, it's not going to work, right? You have to follow the rules for this to work. And so I did. I followed them, and I really wanted to quit, and I couldn't. And so it started to bug me that I had to smoke, right? And it helped make that mind shift that smoking was the enemy. Because here I am, and I'm remembering all these things, and I'm learning all these new things about it. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this, but I have to. And you start to get that animosity towards it in that last little bit right before you're actually allowed to quit. And you'll feel the relief of that animosity, and you'll feel the freedom come over you when you finally do get to quit. So don't think that just because you bought the book, you have to quit smoking. Nope. You're supposed to smoke while you read it. And that's part of what helps make it work, I think, because you'll be ready to quit long before you finish it. So don't be scared of buying the book and thinking that it means you're going to quit as soon as the book shows up. You are going to finish the book, and it's going to help you, and it's going to make it easy. It's going to be one of the easiest things you've ever quit doing in your life. One of the easiest things you've ever done in your life. You don't really have to do anything. You just have to stop doing something, right? This is a very powerful methodology. The book requires you to smoke while you read it, and it really helps you make that shift that smoking is the enemy. And you'll realize how much you hate doing it to yourself. And tackling your mindset before you start to tackle the physical addiction issue is the key. I think that's what works so well about this method that he's found. Is just what this book does, right? It gets your mind right, and then you go after the body addiction. But first, our brain is the most powerful tool. We have to prep our brain, and then we can prepare our bodies, right? We have to have ourselves in order, and then we can work on the machine. It gets you to see things clearly for yourself. It doesn't tell you what or how to think, but walks you through the process of discovering it for yourself, which is what's critical to my success. I wasn't going to listen to somebody tell me how dangerous it was. I wasn't going to listen to somebody tell me what an addict I was and how I was being dumb. I had to be led to make that decision and that discovery on my own. But once I made it for myself, once I saw it and made the decision and the discovery myself, it stuck and it resonated, and it's not going anywhere. And like I said, I'm now 6 months out. I haven't had cigarettes in 6 months. And when I wrote the first part of this review, when I first started, I was only 2 weeks out, right? And I decided I wanted to give it a little bit longer to make sure that this stuck and it actually worked and it wasn't something short-lived. But 6 months out, I think this is really going to be a thing. But I will read you here what I wrote at the 2-week mark, just to give you an idea of what I felt 2 weeks without a cigarette, right? I am now 2 weeks without a cigarette. I have had a few cravings, mostly when having a bourbon and being around people that I used to smoke with. They have all been easily managed, and I get barely any of them now. And this was only 2 weeks after I quit smoking, right? Just writing about how I felt so I would have that to share with you guys. And like I said, most of the time that I get a random, I wouldn't even call it a craving anymore, but just a remembrance of smoking is when I'm doing the things that I used to smoke the most in. Uh, so, sex was one. I always like to have a cigarette after sex. So sometimes I think about that now. Very, very, very rarely, but I'll get done being intimate and remember that I used to always go for a smoke then and be like, no, ugh, I don't want that. I want to bask in this, right? The glow of after. I don't want to ruin that by having to get dressed, get up, go outside, and choke on this cigarette. I used to think that that was one of the best, and now it just sounds horrible. Uh, Smoking when I had bourbon was a big one for me, too. And that one I haven't. That correlation's gone, right? That one doesn't come up much anymore. Uh, so really, I hardly ever think about it. I occasionally, like I said, once every I've had that I can remember, I had a thought about having a smoke like 6 weeks ago, uh, and what we talked about already, but I didn't clearly, and it wasn't like some big hard craving. It was just like, oh man, what about a cigarette? And I was like, oh god, no. So anyway, that's how it's been for me. So I think that you're ready. I think this is your sign. Somebody needed to hear this. This one jumped out at me and said, okay, we're ready. Somebody that listens to my show was ready for these words. And remember, right? We all know what's coming. We know that there's some hard times headed for us in this country. We know that we've got a lot of hard work to do to survive and make things right and to get this boat back on the right path, or just build our own tribes and forget about the boat and do our own thing, whichever way you want to lean with this. I'm more of the tribal mindset myself. But either way, you're going to be better off if you're healthier. You'll do better without smoking. You'll perform better without smoking. Doing the necessary work for us to build our compounds and our farms and build our tribes and do all the things together that we want to do, it will be easier when you breathe better. It will be easier, much, much easier when you quit smoking. Much easier. So, let's go over our closing stuff. That's where we're going to end it, guys. Please remember to subscribe, hit the bell, whatever it is on your app that you're using that tells you to get the notifications when new episodes come out. And check out all of our polls. If you're on Spotify, there are actual polls that I put together where we ask questions about the episode so I can go read them and see what my listeners like and don't like, what you guys want to hear, what you want to learn, what you want to see me do the research on and kind of boil it down for you, or things that I know from my life and experiences that you want to hear about. This is where you get to come back, right? That and the social media. You can come across and say, hey, we want to hear about this kind of stuff. We want to hear, I don't know, maybe you want to hear war stories from my time in the Marine Corps, or maybe you want to hear more about my thoughts on the country or what you could do to be prepared for it, or those kind of things. You got to let me know, right? Otherwise, you're going to get what I'm in the mood for that week. So I'm here to listen to you guys and try to provide you the information and the content that you want. So interact, right? Social media. We've got a Facebook. We've got a Reddit. Facebook's the Modern Barbarian Podcast. Reddit is r/modernbarbarianpod. Twitter, or I guess it's X now. We're going to call it X because it's Elon's thing and he wants it to be X, and that's a bastion of free speech that we've not had in a long time. And on that one, we're at mod_barbarian. There's an Instagram, the Modern Barbarian Podcast, and there's a Tumblr, the Modern Barbarian Podcast, where I put stuff out. So any of these that you like, a lot of the stuff is the same stuff, just spread across multiple platforms, so you can see it on the platform that you are the most comfortable with. But some of them let me do different stuff, and I try to incorporate the specialty of that stuff. Instagram's more about photos and pictures, so I try to get more of that up there. And Facebook has more like little reels and jokes and stuff on it than some of the other ones. So, there's a little bit of difference. So pick the one you like the best, though. If you're listening to this on, or not, I don't think I'm going to do a YouTube on this one. Well, yeah, I will. It just won't have video. It'll just be the audio. But it'll be on YouTube. You can listen to it. Or you can listen to us on Spotify as the Modern Barbarian Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on Audible now. Like, this podcast is all over the place. So anywhere you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us. I will say that both the Spotify and the Audible apps make it really, really easy to control the podcast, and are good players. They save your spot, save from memory. You can download and easily manage, listen to it, and get rid of it without taking up a bunch of space on your device. So those are the ones that I think are the best if you're going to listen to it in podcast mode. But that's it, guys. So here's what I got for you. The book review on The Easy Way to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr. And if you're listening to this and you're smoking, this is your sign that it's time to quit. Anything less is unacceptable.